Welcome back to the episode. I want to talk to you about something that I feel very passionate about, and it's all about how to get what you want. We talk about, the name of the podcast is Live Your Life by Design, but what does that really mean? Living your life by design is living your life the way that you want to live it, not based on someone else's expectations, not based on conditioning, programming, not based on what society expects, not based on what your neighbors are doing, not based on what your parents did. It's based on what you want and what you desire. We have desires placed in our heart for a reason. There are things the back of our mind like, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be great if? Those are little desires, or like little breadcrumbs are being dropped. And for most of us, we just stop. We're like, we don't even explore it. I remember my dad had always wanted to have his own business. He was a teacher and a principal for his whole entire career. He always wanted his own business. He had a name for the business, and it was a combination of letters from my name and my sister's names, and he just blended it in a way to create a very creative name. And whenever he would make homemade bottles of wine, he'd make the label with that name on it. But he always wanted a business, and he never went for it because he found it was going to be too risky. Like, I think I remember him even like exploring the possibility of purchasing or leasing a storefront space, and it didn't go anywhere because he said it was too risky. And so many of us don't follow into our desires because of it being too risky. We're going to fail at it. We're not going to, it's not going to work out for us. And what it really is it's something different from what we've done before. And we are not wired for change. We are wired on autopilot, and we are designed that way. And it served us very well, like thousands of years ago, or at the beginning of, not thousands, like millions, at the beginning of man, because we had to be aware of any threats to the environment, any, saber-toothed tigers, or even like in today's time, like if you're going for a walk and like your neighbor's vicious dog escaped the backyard and chased you down the street, like that, you want to be wired for autopilot so then you can see that threat very quickly. But that autopilot, it doesn't like come on or come off. It's there all the time. And so what ends up happening is any change to our norm, to our story that we tell ourselves, to our conditioning and our programming, any change can create that nervous system dysregulation. It can create that feeling of fear in our body or feeling of wanting to run. But when we take a broader view, there really isn't a threat. Unless there is. But typically in this experience, in this case, it's not a threat. Like in my dad not wanting to pursue a business wasn't because there was a real threat. He said it was just too risky. And so he just assumed that it was just going to be too much money down and it wouldn't, work for him. And of course there needs to be some sort of rationalization or thinking things clearly before making a big business decision. But he had always been like a fearful person when it came to like finances and money and stuff like that. So when we want to go after what we want and after our desires and after a life that we want to design, we have to learn to get uncomfortable. We have to learn to work through these fears and these limiting beliefs. But I'm going to talk about a few steps to kind of help you through that. And the first step is to get clear on what you want. Most people don't know what they want because, again, they're in that autopilot. They're like, I don't know. I have no idea what I want. Some of us may not know what we want in the specifics. Like, I got a new car a month or two ago, and I knew what I wanted in the car. I knew I wanted it to be an SUV. I knew I wanted to have like a sunroof. I knew I wanted to have like all the luxuries in a car, but I had no idea what type of car. I had no idea the color of it. It didn't really matter to me. When I visualized it, it was like, this is the feeling I'm going for. And in our human design chart, there is a variable, like one of the arrows. It's the bottom right arrow. When you look at your chart, that can give you information as to whether or not you are like a specific manifestor, like you need all those details, or a non-specific manifestor. But we're not here to talk about human design today. That's just going to give you an example of like how your subconscious mind might work when you're wanting to get clear on something. So the first step is to get clear on what you want. If you're not happy with how things are going in your life, What you don't want to do is complain about how things are not going on in your life, because the moment that you complain about it, the moment that you're like, I don't want this, this is not working for me, I don't like it, you're putting yourself in that mental state all over again. You're putting yourself in that frequency. You're feeling all those feelings. You're feeling miserable. And so therefore you're going to be still attracting that same thing. It's the same thing as saying, don't picture the blue elephant. And then all of a sudden your mind's like, the blue elephant, what? Like, you can't help yourself from doing that if you're telling yourself not to do something. Your subconscious mind will still stay with it. So the key is like, what is it that you want? What's the feeling you're going after? What are the desires you want? What would you like? Like for me, I would love to get to a point in my businesses where I have freedom, where I can travel wherever, take the kids on a trip, go back to Canada, spend like a good chunk of time in Canada with my parents and still work. Like to me, that just seems it just makes sense, and it's what I desire, and I'm calling in. And it's not helpful for me to think about ways that I can't do that. Think about ways that I can't travel for a long period of time because I have to stay close to for my speech therapy clients. It's not helpful. It just keeps me trapped. And so it's getting clear on what you want. So that's the first step. The second step, when you are getting clear on what you want, you be prepared. You're going to have these little thoughts that are come out, and they're going to tell you that's not possible, right? These little bitchy thoughts. That is your ego that's telling you, don't change, stay in the autopilot, stay where you are. Because again, it's like that perceived fear of like, your ego doesn't want you to do anything that's different. And familiarity is safety to the ego, but familiarity isn't necessarily what's best for you, or may not necessarily actually be really safe. It's just to the subconscious mind, it feels safe because the subconscious mind is all about familiarity. So you're going to get uncomfortable feelings. You're going to get thoughts that's probably going to sabotage you. So once you get clear what you want, you have to learn how to clear the bullshit that's going to come up. It's going to inevitably come up. And you can clear that with various tools. I have a free beliefs masterclass where we talk about how we can do that. It's looking for evidence to confirm a new belief. You use tools to help you with that. Like even like with human design, I love looking at human design to see what my gifts are. Be like, oh yeah, this is why I want to do this. Like this speaks to my gifts. Or what I'm learning and I'll be getting trained in soon is resolution therapy, where it's a subconscious mind technique to clear these limiting beliefs. Or EFT, there's so much out there, somatic release, breath work, doing things to clear. One of the things I like to do is what we call sacred raging, where it's literally you have a fit. You could scream into a pillow, you like stomp around, and you're moving the energy through your body. A little fun fact, and kind of going off tangent a little bit, but with mammals like dogs, if they ever end up having a fear, like something happens, you'll see that they shake. Dogs will shake, they'll like shake their whole body, and it's shaking that emotion out of their body. That's something that animals do when after they feel threatened, after the threat goes over, they'll just shake. As humans, we don't shake. And so what ends up happening, this feeling is trapped in our body and lead to other issues. So it's good to actually shake if you're having these feelings come up, instead of ignoring it, is to move it through your body. So we've talked about getting clear on what we want, clearing the bullshit that tells us it's not possible. Use the tools that help you stay focused on your desires. And the next thing, which I think is so important and such a missed step, because what typically happens is we get clear on what we want, we clear the stuff, and it's like it's still not happening, and then we get frustrated. And I'm like guilty of that too, where I'll get frustrated, like, where is it? How come it's not happening? And you focus on what's not happening, which is lack, right? You're basically saying that you're in this lack vibration, right? And so if you're in this lack vibration, this lower frequency, you're just going to continue to attract more things into your life that vibrate at that frequency. Instead is embodying the version of who you want to be. The person who, like I'll take me for example, the person who wants to have that laptop lifestyle, who can travel. What would that person do? What would that person do to have ease in their life so they can be able to do that? What decisions would I make, or that person make? What actions would that person take? And it's getting you to think in that aspect. So you are raising your vibration, you're raising your frequency, and then it's just easier to call it in. a perfect example I often give people when kind of regulating your nervous, it's basically regulating your nervous system to be prepared for when that shift happens, so it's not such a shock to the nervous system. So an example I often give people are, let's say you want to call in like a lot of money, or you want to start wearing like, you picture yourself with like luxury handbags or driving luxury vehicles, and you're just like, I just want that. That'd be so fun to be able to do that. But yet you go into like a luxury handbag store and you're like, you feel so uncomfortable there. You're like, what the hell? Like, people are staring at me. They know I can't afford this. I can't be here. I'm going to check out. Your nervous system is not wired for that level, right? Like, your nervous system is like, you know, you don't have that money, and so it feels uncomfortable to be there. Well, the first thing to do is to regulate your nervous system for that. So you might go in there and feel the handbag and like look through it, because if you are someone who is in a position to purchase a high level bag like that, you're not going to just go in like, I want that. I mean, maybe you could, but you're going to like look at it, you're going to feel it, you're going to touch it, you're going to smell it, you're going to use all those senses to figure out that's really what you want to do. And so that's your way of regulating your nervous system, so it's not a shock when it happens. Like, when we were looking for a vehicle, I test drove luxury vehicles, and I had a vehicle in mind that I thought I wanted. And then when I test drove it, I'm like, you know what? I actually don't want this. This seems a lot smaller than what I'm looking for. And I would not have known that if I just assumed this is what I want. Because on paper, this looks like it has everything I want. It has the luxury. It has like the vibe I'm looking for. But I really didn't want it. So if I was, and then when we end up buying the car, that wasn't the one we got anyway. So it's a way to regulate your nervous system through the embodiment piece. You have to embody before you attain it, because otherwise you won't be able to keep it. So like people who win, who win the lottery, it's such a shock to their system. They don't know how to handle it. And for a lot of people who have a lot of money wounds, they actually want to get rid of it, right? So they'll go on huge trips. They don't invest. They just spend. And I can't remember the percentage, but it's a high percentage of lottery winners who actually go broke because they haven't regulated their nervous system for it. So the key is to regulate your nervous system for the thing that you want. So it's getting clearing any bullshit that tells you it's not possible, using the tools to stay focused on those desires, and then embody the version of who you want to be. So this is it for the episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you guys on the next episode. Bye.